Chapter 34. Kyle's POV. I was in another tough situation. Last night my mates refused to talk to me about what happened after they stormed off after Cornelius, so I chose to do what I do best. Give them the silent treatment. They were all already ignoring each other, so I'll just join in so we can all be immature. But ignoring my mates wasn't the sticky situation I was in right now. No, instead I was stuck being some kind of therapist for Cornelius and 𝐊𝐿 while they talked about what they wanted from each other. The girls were out hunting or something. My mates were all ignoring each other in the guest cabin or out running, so all that was left to witness this chaotic conversation was me. I was glad that they were confident enough in my people skills to let me listen in on their private conversation, but at the same time I don't like picking sides when people disagreed with each other. I was just in charge of being here to witness it. Really, they didn't ask me to give any advice or anything. I was just kind of invisible on the couch. I think I was actually only here because 𝐊𝐿 didn't want to be left alone with anger issues. So I'll go first. 𝐊𝐿 started as I sunk into the couch and sipped on my cold tea. I could tell he was nervous, but he had a lot he seemed to want to get off his chest, and boy was I here for it. I don't think we're getting closer as mates, and I don't see the point in trying my hardest if you aren't either. It takes two people to make a relationship work, and maybe I'm needy, but I want you to at least try to pay more attention to me and give me affection. That isn't a lot to ask for, but I understand different species do different things, 𝐊𝐿 said while making eye contact with Cornelius, so I turned away from looking at him to look at Cornelius to hear his response. Well, I could say the same thing about you. Yes. I've done stuff in the past to probably make you scared of me, but it's like you treat me like I'm going to attack you every time I try to get closer to you. Plus, how am I supposed to give you affection when you flinch every time I come near you and hate being touched so much? He said while staring at 𝐊𝐿, causing me to yet again look towards the other person to see their response. That's true, but I don't think you need to touch someone to be affectionate. I think you're after me only because we're bonded to each other, not because of my personality or how I am as a person. We feel the pull towards each other, but other than that, what can you honestly say you feel towards me? There's no way you love me when you don't even know the real me, 𝐊𝐿 continued, and by this time I was probably sipping obnoxiously loud, but it seemed as if I weren't even there to them. But I want to get to know you better, I really do. But it's hard. You shy away from me no matter what I do, like I'm some kind of hideous monster. I already know I'm a bad person and don't deserve to have a mate, but you remind me of that every time you look at me with those sad eyes of yours. Cornelius sighed out, and I could tell that shifted the mood a bit, because 𝐊𝐿 looked away from him, acknowledging the truth in his words. I didn't ask your alphas to let you come here so that we could just grow further apart from each other. I wanted to genuinely get closer to you, but I can't change overnight. I'm an asshole and I have a huge resentment towards wolves, then I find out I'm mated to one. He continued, and I looked back and forth between the both of them. I could see the reasoning behind both of their stances, but it was still hard for them to see the other person's side. Is it because I'm male too? It's because I'm a boy, isn't it? 𝐊𝐿 said quietly from his spot across from Cornelius, and I could just feel the pain in his words. I've told you before that gender isn't the reason. Why do you keep insisting that I don't shower you with love? Because you're a boy. If you are a girl, it wouldn't have made a difference either. A wolf is a wolf. Cornelius explained to him, but 𝐊𝐿 kept his eyes away from his mates. Then, if it's not because I'm a boy and because of my species, why do you keep trying to get to know me if you keep saying you don't like wolves? For me, you'll make an exception because you're my mate. That's bullshit. Then, if we had kids and they came out as wolf pups instead of little lion cubs, what would you do? Hate them because they don't look like you? 𝐊𝐿 argued, and I almost choked on my tea. I've never seen him speak so much, let alone hold his ground and not just agree and submit to someone else. That isn't what I meant, Cornelius said before he pinched the bridge of his nose in annoyance. All I have is 3 more things I want to ask you, 𝐊𝐿 said, catching both of our attentions. Do you love any of those girls in your pride? And before you answer, I want you to really think. If I asked you to disband that pride and just live by my side, would you be able to do it? If you don't feel a pull towards any of them, would you leave them for me as your only mate? He asked him, and I felt the tensions building up. I was guilty of being curious in his answer because everyone knows that lions have always had prides. Their prides were equivalent to our packs. The love I feel for them is different than the love I feel towards you. I grew up with them, and we've all protected each other like a family. I know you could tell that I've never slept with any of them. You just want to hear me say it to reassure you. But asking me to leave the family I've had for someone that can't even be in a room alone with me because they're scared of me. Are you sure you want me to answer that? Cornelius said, and I saw that his words affected Caleb greatly, or more his wolf than anything. Tears started to flow down his face, and Cornelius didn't even move an inch to rush to his side and make him stop crying. He was like this last night when he stormed off before checking to see if he was okay after we all smelt those wolves close to him. Would you change for me? Caleb asked shakily as tears continued to flow down his face. It was heartbreaking to watch, but it just showed how strong a mate bond could affect us even if we weren't truly in love. I'm already trying to, so yes, I'd change for you, Cornelius said quickly as he continued to stare at Caleb, his eyes never once leaving him. Will you never bother me again if I decide that I don't want to accept you as my mate and move on with my life? Caleb asked him, and I placed my empty cup down. No, I don't think I could do that. If you want, honestly, I'll give it to you. If you decided not to be my mate, it would take me a long time to accept and respect your decision. Call me selfish, but you breaking the bond doesn't only affect you, it affects me too. And I would never even let you think about leaving me, Cornelius stated as he finally stood up and walked over to Caleb. My eyes were glued to them as if they were in a movie, and I couldn't stop myself from crying too. I was just a sucker for romance. I have questions for you too, Cornelius said, breaking the silence while he wiped Caleb's tears away. Will you stay by my side as I try my hardest to get over my hatred towards wolves and erase my anger problems? And I mean genuinely stick by my while I go through ups and downs to get better, he asked him, and Caleb took a moment to think before nodding his head. If I disband my pride, Cornelius said before pausing. Will you ... stay here with me? If you don't like it here, we can move anywhere you want. But would you consider living with me, just the two of us, he asked him, and again, Caleb silently nodded in response as Cornelius continued to wipe away all of Caleb's stray tears. And lastly, will you please communicate with me? We don't see eye to eye on everything, and since we're not bonded, I can't tell what you're thinking. If you want me to rush by your side whenever you want to feel my touch, just say so and I will, he said before pulling Caleb's right hand to his lips. Caleb shuddered and his face grew red at the affectionate action, but he stayed quiet and just nodded his head up and down again as an answer. It's going to be hard for us to settle our differences, but this is a step, I guess. I don't fucking like the idea of you leaving me to find someone else that can love you better than I can, but shit, if I need to change to be the perfect man for you, I will, Cornelius said, and Caleb yanked his hand away from him. Just because we talk doesn't mean I'll just forgive you for everything overnight. I still don't know how I feel about you living and sleeping with girls you don't even have a proper mate bond with, Caleb said with his face still flushed. They were going to need a lot of time to really fall head over heels for each other. And as much as Cornelius was a dick-faced asshat, I'm sure one day he'd be the perfect mate for Caleb. Okay, now that I'm done being Casper the Friendly Ghost, can we finally talk about why that pack keeps bugging you? I announced, getting both of their attention, and Cornelius glared at me. You can't be a cock-block if there's no cock to block, I reminded myself mentally as I thought back to Cornelius's ED. I know what you're thinking, and I already told you I can get hard. Cornelius growled at me, and I ignored him. It's okay, Caleb. Even if he can't get hard, there's other ways he can make you feel good when you get older. Stay the pure little cutie you are forever, okay? I asked him in a baby voice, and he glared at me too. It was like they both wanted their faces to get stuck with those nasty glares on them forever. Chapter 35. James's POV. Kyle, will you just talk to me already? I asked him as I walked up to him. We were outside roaming Cornelius's territory for any signs that trespassers came back, but he was still being stubborn and ignoring us for not telling him about what happened. In all honesty, none of us were ready to talk about it, but my mate ignoring me hurt me more than arguing with my brothers. La, I can't hear you. Did you hear something? Oryx, Kyle said, causing the nearby Oryx to gaze at us while it ate. I know mates aren't supposed to keep secrets and tell each other everything, so I'm ready to talk to you about it now. If you would just listen to me, I told him as I continued to walk behind him and follow him. You ignoring me is the most painful thing I've ever felt in my entire life, I explained before I grabbed him by his wrist and made him face me. I felt 1,000 times worse than you're feeling right now when I tried talking to each of you. Instead of one mate ignoring me, I had 3 huge babies pouting around and ignoring each other as well. Kyle spat, and he was honestly angry, which was completely understandable. I'm sorry, I can speak for them when I say we all just need some space that night. We shouldn't have continued to act the way we did, and we should have been mature enough to talk to each other about it instead of just letting it escalate to this point. I told him while I stared into his eyes and continued to hold on to him. Well, I'm glad you thought about your actions, but I'm not budging. Think of this as your punishment, he huffed before retracting his arm from me. I sighed once his back was turned again and continued to follow behind him, silently this time. He knew we all loved him, and we couldn't stay mad at each other forever, but this was his way of helping us get our shit together. The only thing that hurt me more than him ignoring me was not being able to hold and touch him. I was super affectionate and loved to feel the warmth of his body pressed against mine, but if Kyle wasn't happy, he would hiss and run away from us wherever we tried to get close to him. I even tried trapping him in with food this morning so I could do a sneak attack and hug him from behind, but he didn't fall for it. He just scarfed the food down and took off the door, which led us to where we are now. A few minutes into us walking around and investigating, we both stripped and shifted. I took that time to admire his body, then his wolf, as I watched how beautiful he was, since he wasn't going to let me see him naked anytime soon. After shifting, he continued to walk with me, trotting right behind him, smacking me in the face with his tail on purpose constantly. Then he suddenly stopped. He looked around before squatting low in the grass. I stood there behind him, confused, but then he pulled me down with him by nudging me harshly, making me fall in the tall grass. "Shh. Don't make any noise," he mind-linked me, and I didn't get why he was acting this way until the scent hit me. We were on the border of Cornelius's territory, and the scent of at least 3 other wolves were by us. It smelled like 2 males and 1 female were just a few yards away from us. If we were in our other forms, they surely would have spotted us quicker. "Can you tell if they shifted?" I replied, but he stayed silent, trying to analyze the situation. If they were in their wolf forms, then they could tell we were close by them, since our senses intensify and enhance. The stronger the rank, the greater the senses. That's probably why he smelt them before I did. We stayed crouching down in the grass as we tried to listen for their movements and any noises they made. But as I was saying, theoretically speaking, if my mate asked me to spit in their mouth during sex or their heat, I'd do it, the girl voice said, and I couldn't help but tilt my head. It's basically the same thing as kissing. You can't just stay a vanilla forever. If that's what they want, who am I to deny them? That one of the males spoke up, and I was genuinely confused. Did they sense us and were trying to make us lower our guard, or did they actually have no idea the 2 of us were listening in on this embarrassing conversation? It's totally not the same thing as kissing. I can kiss someone perfectly fine, but I don't like the idea of spitting in someone's mouth or letting them spit in my mouth. Spit is gross out of a kissing category. The other guy retorted, and then it was Kyle's turn to tilt his head. If these were the ones trespassing on Cornelius's property, I don't think we had that much to worry about. Okay, but what about if you had a submissive mate, and they asked you to either let them peg you or let them stick a finger in your ass? Would you let them? The girl spoke up, and I was getting flustered just hearing them speak. Is this what friends talk about together? Just out in the open like this? And what the hell is pegging? I would for sure. I'm confident enough in my own dominance to not mind it, the first guy said, but I heard a deep sigh come from the second guy right after he spoke. See, you're just not passing the vibe check, dude, the girl continued, and I nudged Kyle with my nose gently. The glare he gave me softened up when I gave him my signature puppy dog eyes, earning me a kiss from him. He licked the side of my face before nuzzling me and rubbing himself against me. I know for sure it was more of his wolf giving me affection than him, since he's stubborn, but feeling him against me again made my heart flutter. I'm not even going to start on the other questions I have for you guys. And this time it was the girl that sighed, most likely frustrated with how the second guy was responding. Our patrol is done anyway, so yes, please end your inappropriate questions. Save that for when we aren't working, the second guy said quickly before we heard them shuffle away. We stayed low for a few minutes just to make sure we were alone again, then ran back to the cabins after we retrieved our clothes to report on whatever the hell you'd even call that conversation. Chapter 36. Kyle's POV. While we were hiding in the bushes, these wolves were having weird conversations, I told everyone as I busted through Cornelius's front door. But no one was there but 𝐿𝐲. She just looked at me confused before offering me a weirdly shaped fruit. No time for eating 𝐿𝐲. We might be dealing with the most terrible type of wolf tribe imaginable. A pack filled with nothing but Generation Z rebels, I explained to her, but then I froze. Baby ... Did you just turn down food? James asked me, baffled, and I almost fainted. Me? Turning down any type of food. Impossible. There was no way I'd do such a thing. Food was my life. Maybe the situation is more important than food or something like that, I shouted. Then everyone else showed up once they heard me. Is it true Piggy turned down food? Cornelius asked, and Caleb nudged his side. So you all hear me rejecting the love of my life, food, but you don't hear my spy stories, I exclaimed while fake crying. It was like the only thing that mattered to these people were everything but the threat at hand. Just get on with it already, drama queen, Cornelius said, so I huffed in return. Instead of telling them what happened like I intended to do, I decided to do what I did best. Be petty and eat, since everyone was so concerned about my sudden loss of appetite. I took the fruit from 𝐿𝐲 and plopped down on the couch beside her. I felt everyone stare at me and wait, but I ignored them. Well, since Kyle's busy going to town on all those loquats, we basically stumbled upon 3 wolves. Their scents were nearly identical to the ones we smelt the other night, and they had some weird conversations. They didn't even seem to notice us, so I wouldn't say they were high in rank. James said, but I was too focused on stuffing my cheeks. So I take it that they didn't say anything about what they were after. What do you mean by weird conversations? Liam asked, and I seriously didn't want to rethink it. And I thought you were kinky. Those guys were on a whole different level, my wolf said, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, really. Who likes that sort of stuff? If I were to even think about asking one of my mates to spit in my mouth, I probably would die of embarrassment. Sure, let's just go with that, my wolf said again, but as always, I tuned him out by distracting myself with the sweet, savory taste of food. Something about pegging, but that isn't what's important. If that pack is filled with nothing but juvenile rogues, I don't think it's safe to keep Caleb here. James spoke up again, and this time it got silent. Everyone was probably thinking the same thing, but I took it upon my gorgeous self to say what we were all thinking. Yes, they may be attracted to Caleb's scent. Yes, I'm the best-looking one here, so they're probably going to target but him and myself. You guys don't have to worry, though. I'm already mated and I can take care of myself. I told them, but they just stayed quiet. 𝐿𝐲? I just said I can take care of myself, so you don't have to worry about anything, I said louder this time as 𝐿𝐲 bit into another fruit. Yeah, whatever. But we need to have a schedule and rules now until we figure out how to solve this situation. We should have different hunting shifts so they can't tell who hunts on what days, and someone should always be by Caleb's side, Cornelius said, and I gasped. Aren't you going to stick by him 24/7, Mr. Big Bad Lion? Liam chimed in again, and I could tell Cornelius was trying his hardest to keep his anger under control. Good for him. It's in case I'm not by him, smart-ass ... Liam, Cornelius countered, and I laughed. It was weird seeing him genuinely try not to be an ass every time he spoke. Just don't go overboard when you hunt in front of him ... please, Seth said, and I agreed with him. If he was going to take Caleb hunting, I'm sure it would make our cute little runt uncomfortable and throw up. Plus he was super tiny, he'd be easy prey if Cornelius wasn't paying attention. And don't even think about pressuring him into mating or fully bonding to protect him. We might be different species, but don't think we won't all try our hardest to take your ass down, James told Cornelius seriously, and I agreed by nodding my head and mumbling with food in my mouth. Okay, let's move on please, Caleb said before I saw his face heat up. Wait, so no one's going to question how a bunch of rogues that young formed a pack by themselves. Just me, I suddenly said after I finished all my fruits. If they're young, wouldn't that be easier on us to get rid of them if they became a problem? Seth asked, and I shook my head. When I went on missions for our pack's alphas, I saw how dangerous Generation Z children became firsthand. They were so strong they could wipe out other packs with ease. If they become a problem, we'll handle it. It's as simple as that, Cornelius stated with such confidence I couldn't help but find myself agreeing. We were pretty strong all together, so I don't think they'd defeat us easily, but I didn't want to risk any chances. Chapter 37. Kyle's POV. I was currently minding my own business as I sang obnoxiously loud in the shower. It was my shift to go hunting next, and I wanted to take a quick shower before leaving, even though I was going to take another when I got back. There was something about being fresh and clean before a hunt that I liked. I felt like I couldn't perform at my best if I was dirty and sweaty. I continued to sing, but then I suddenly stopped when the bathroom door was slammed open. I should have been the only one here since it was Liam's turn to go hunt while Seth and James patrolled different areas. It's just me. Do you mind if I shower with you? I'm covered in fucking 𝐿𝐤𝐼𝐸 blood and one of those bastards tried to lunge at me, Liam asked, and I took a moment to think. I was still kind of angry with them, so we haven't been too intimate in a while, and I just know that if we were super close together in a shower that one thing would lead to another. Sure, but no funny business, I said sternly as I scooted over in the shower to give him room to rinse off. The second he moved the shower curtain back, I felt my whole body heat up. Why was he already naked? I wasn't mentally prepared for the feast right in front of me, but I had to stay strong. I've seen all of them naked plenty of times before, and this was just a shower to get blood off. Nothing serious. Caleb's outside with 𝐊𝐤𝐳, so you don't have to worry about him being alone while we're in here, Liam said, taking me out of my thoughts, causing me to look away from his body. Oh, that's good. We all did promise to always have someone by his side. We've all already seen each other naked, but I don't think Cornelius would like it if we ever let him sit in the bathroom while we showered. I joked, and suddenly the air grew tense. Did I say something wrong? I looked back at his body and I saw his back muscles tense up. I wouldn't want him or anyone else in the bathroom while you shower, he suddenly said, as I watched the last few drops of red wash down his body. I was just joking. He'd be too embarrassed to do anything like that, I told him as I tried to reach around him to grab a bar of soap, but he gripped my wrist gently and turned to face me, entwining our fingers together as he held my hand. I was expecting him to say something next, but nope. All I got was silence. He just stood there holding my hand, his back facing the shower head, causing water to run down his back as he just stared at my eyes. Liam, I warned knowingly, but it didn't have any effect on him. He brought our hands to his lips and kissed the back of my hand lovingly as he continued to look into my eyes. I was already hot, but the tingles that were sent around to different parts of my body made me feel butterflies. Can I at least kiss you? It's been too long since I felt your lips against mine, he said while pouting, and I looked away from his eyes. I was weak to those beautiful eyes that they had, and I felt like he knew that and was using it against me. I'm still upset with you, I told him after a few moments of me trying to get calm and collected, but it was so hard to try to focus when I had one of my Greek godlike mates in front of me naked. Baby, what can I do to make you forgive me? You know I'd do anything, he said deeply before walking closer to me, closing the small gap I gave us when he got in. Be strong, Kyle, be strong. Oh, come on, a little kiss won't hurt anyone. Plus, you've been craving their touches for a while now. Just a little peck, then boom, it's over. My wolf tried to coax me and it was actually starting to work. Jay, just a little peck and then that's it, I said before making eye contact with him again. Okay, if you want more, just ask and you shall receive, he said slyly, and I nodded. I wasn't going to need more, so it's going to be perfectly fine. Just a small kiss, and then I can finish rinsing off and get out to go hunting. I wrapped my arms around him, and he wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me slowly but surely even closer to him. He made our waists slightly grind against each other, and I glared at him in warning, and he just smiled a big toothy grin. I rolled my eyes but tilted my head to the side and gave him a gentle peck on his plump, full lips. I unwrapped my arms and he let go of my waist after that. Just our lips brushing up against each other was electrifying, and just barely enough to satisfy my cravings of touching them. Actually, it was the complete opposite. It made me crave their touch even more. He turned back around and started lathering up with soap as I began to get even more aroused. He was playing dirty by acting like that small kiss didn't get him as hard as it was getting me. Liam, I called out in need as I felt my dick throb. Yes, Kyle, he teased as he continued to have his back facing me as he rinsed off in the shower. Kiss me again. I need more, I told him, embarrassed, and he didn't even need me to tell him twice before he turned around and quickly picked me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist as he placed my back against the cold tile. Water continued to run down his back and the look in his eyes made my dick twitch. "I'm sorry that I made you mad, truly," he said, and I was glad to know that they were all sincere with their apologies. Not every mated couple was perfect, and people argue all the time. It's a part of life. "I forgive you," I said as I cupped his somewhat chubby cheeks in my hands before leaning in and kissing him. Our heads were tilted slightly, and our lips were locked against each other perfectly. He slowly licked at my bottom lip, and I took that as a hint to part my lips, so I did. He snaked his tongue into my mouth and reached for my tongue while grinding against me again, making my bottom half feel so good as his lips were on mine. He was holding my legs around his waist, which was already hot, as he grinded our cocks against one another. I knew he wasn't going to penetrate me, just kiss and rub against me, but that was already enough to send me on edge. His lips left mine and started attacking my neck in kisses and sucking while I wrapped my arms around his head. I couldn't hold back my moan, and I hoped that no one was around to hear how gross and needy I sounded. I felt like my moans made me sound like a whale, but my mates thought the exact opposite. "Even though we're in the shower, I can feel how wet you are for me," he mumbled as he focused on grinding against me as he nipped at my collarbone. His voice was deeper, indicating that his wolf took control and my face couldn't get any redder. It was starting to get too hot and stuffy in here, but I didn't care. I was too close to coming to even bother trying to stop us before we fainted from the heat. I felt his grip on my legs tighten, and with one huge buck of his hips, we were both climaxing all over each other. I felt my ass throbbing in need and want, and trust me, I wanted nothing more but for him to rail me hard in this bathroom shower, but I was already in bliss from just dusk kissing and frothing. A few minutes later we were dressed and dried off and made our way to where 𝐊𝐿𝐺 and Caleb were. "Took you long enough." "Was there really that much blood?" Caleb asked worriedly, and I coughed to clear my throat. "Why, yeah, there was a lot of blood, that's what took a while." "Anyways, let's go look for some fruits while we hunt," Caleb, I said, while blushing and pulling him away with Chapter 38. Kyle's POV. "So have you and Cornelius talked more since then?" I asked Caleb while he picked loquats from a tree. "Kind of. I'm trying to meet him halfway, and it's clearly going to take time, but I'm starting to understand his situation a bit more. We're two different species, so of course things are going to be different," he answered calmly, and I hummed in response. "You two really are opposites, though. But opposites attract, right? I'm sure everything will work out sooner or later. You just have to keep trying and give it your all," I told him encouragingly, and a small smile formed on his face. "Okay, enough about my mating issues. What do you think the real reason is for that pack forming?" he suddenly asked me while I jumped down from where I was on the tree besides him. "Oh, that pack of youngsters? I have no clue. Maybe they wanted to make a utopia or something happened that led to them not having adults around," I told him, "and it was really up to the imagination. I've never seen something like that before. And we weren't even 100% sure that there wasn't adult authority or anything. We had no leads, and since I saw them with James, they haven't been spotted since. I'm just curious as to why they'd want Cornelius's territory. Yes, the land has a lot of resources like these fruit trees, and lots of prey roam around here since he has watering holes and stuff. But there's tons of unclaimed land with similar territory in this region, isn't there?" he said, and I scratched my head in thought. They were snooping around here before we arrived, so there's no way they knew Caleb was that lion's mate. What else would they be after my wolf chimed in, and it was starting to get confusing. One thought is maybe they are a bunch of youngsters, and before we got here they came to like the land and planned on overthrowing Cornelius and his pride. But if so, why didn't they try taking over the land when they left it for so long? Another thought is maybe they aren't all young, but a lot of the pack positions are taken up by the younger members, meaning the older ones are slim in numbers due to people going off to find their mates, or their birth rates were irregular. But even then, if there was a mix of ages clashing in that pack, they wouldn't want to fight over land, they'd just go and find something less stressful. And lastly, once the lions returned and brought the presence of wolves with them, they continued to stay in the area and make their presence known by trespassing and staying in the area boldly. "Nothing's adding up," I mumbled to myself, and suddenly the air grew thick. "Where'd all the animals nearby go?" Caleb asked, concerned, and I instantly shifted the second I heard a low growl come from the nearby forest area. Earlier it was noisy with bugs and animals surrounding us, but now it was deadly silent, aside from the growls coming towards us slowly. Caleb quickly got down from the tree and shifted behind me and stayed there for safety. In that form he could take more injures in a fight, but he was extremely small and vulnerable. Tell Cornelius we've encountered one by the west forest side of his territory. There may be more coming in from each side. I mind-linked my mates and I was overcome with their feelings. Everything they felt was sent rushing through my body. Anxiety, anger, worry, concern. I felt it all. I stood in front of Caleb protectively and growled even louder than the hidden wolf that was near us. Its scent didn't match any of the 3 younger wolves I encountered before. It didn't even smell like a wolf at all. It disguised itself in animal blood. I could only tell it was a wolf because of its growl. Soon the growling stopped, but I knew it was still stalking us, analyzing a way to attack. I backed up more so that I could feel Caleb on me from behind, and I felt him trembling behind me. It was my duty as his beta to protect him even if we were away from the pack. Against other wolves, I was extremely confident in my fighting abilities, but even I couldn't take on an entire pack if I was wrong about them trying to close in on us from different areas of Cornelius's territory. Everyone's branched off, including the girls, to different areas, so I'm on my way to help you, Seth told me, and I felt relief. Even if I couldn't take a lot of wolves on, I knew I could fight long enough to wait for him to arrive for assistance. Sounds good. So far we're not fighting, they're just watching us, I told him before I snarled loudly, in attempts to spook them away or challenge them to show themselves. And show themselves they did. There was 4 wolves, all male, and even though they were smaller than my wolf, they were bulky. Wolves in general are only supposed to be about 180 pounds or so, but they looked way heavier for some reason. I scraped my paws against the dirt below me in warning. My ears were definitely erect, and I felt my fur start to bristle in anger. My lips curled up again and I continued to snarl as I crouched backwards to get ready to attack. I wasn't going to let any of them near Caleb, and I wasn't going to lose to them. I looked back to check on Caleb and he was clearly frightened. His ears were flattened down against his small head, his tail was tucked between his legs, and as he trembled, he began to whimper lowly and slowly begin to arch his back in fear. The sight of him scared was enough to aggravate me even more. No one makes Caleb or any of my packmates scared. I looked back at them and they slowly began to creep forward, so I lunged at the biggest one quickly. I bited his shoulder roughly, and it was enough to make him whine, but not nearly enough to take him down in one go. His whine made the other ones jump into his rescue, and I didn't mind it as long as they focused on me and not on Caleb. Chapter 39. Kyle's POV. I whined loudly as I felt a sharp pain course throughout my right leg. I was fighting them off pretty good for a 4-on-1 battle, but every now and then I'd get a hard blow that hurt me. Just fight them off long enough for backup to come, my wolf reminded me, and I couldn't agree more. I didn't have to win alone, I just needed to hold them down as a distraction until more help gets here. Hopefully any minute now. Don't worry, Caleb. I'm stronger than these weaklings, so don't cry, I mind-linked Caleb, but it was no use. I don't think my words reached him. I think he was still traumatized from the time we fought against Cornelius. I understood why he was feeling the way he was, but in this situation it was a huge weakness. He's an easy target and was on the verge of literally pissing himself from fear. I moved my attacks forward, pushing them back towards the direction they came from to get them further from Caleb, but that did me more harm than I thought. The more I tried to get the attacks to go one way, 2 of the wolves nipped at my injured leg while the bigger one continued to try to bite chunks out of my neck. You were right, there's wolves coming in from each corner. I've already taken down 5 small fries, so I'll be heading your way after one last search, Baby James told me, and I let out a growl the moment the larger wolf tried to pin me down using his weight. Only my mates were allowed to do that move on me, but just the thought of another one of my mates coming to my aid both relieved me and made me feel loved. He finished off 5 small fries while I was still struggling with these 3 alone. Damn, was he strong. Please hurry, I told all 3 of them, and I could feel their emotions again. They were pushing themselves to the limit just to hurry up and be by my side. I didn't want them to rush, because the #1 thing we taught in training was that rushing led to errors in battle. The more you rush, the more sloppy your moves get, which can lead to deaths when rogues are involved. I used my head to headbutt the huge wolf in front of me, causing him to lean backwards and fall on his back. The other 2 didn't waver and continued to try to attack my leg as I tried my hardest to bite at both of their noses. I looked over at Caleb again for reassurance, and I saw that he was still in the same spot he was in when the battle first broke out. Caleb, honey, if you can hear me, I need you to run. I can't fight fully with you here, I told him, but again, I don't think he could hear me over his own thoughts. Just as I was about to snarl loudly in hopes to snap him out of it, 𝐀𝐿 came out of nowhere and tackled the two wolves away from me in her lioness form. She was alone, but just her here was enough to bring some balance back into this fight. She was huge in her beast form, and she was scaring the living hell out of the two younger wolves now under her. She tripled the weight of normal wolves in that form, and she was just tall overall. She roared in their faces, which instantly made them faint, but that didn't stop her from continuing to roar loudly and stand on top of them. I knew they had a few broken bones just from her paw's weight, but she didn't move an inch from towering over them in case they regained consciousness and decided to attack. I looked from that scene over to the huge wolf that wasn't swayed. He stood a few feet away from me, and the sheer anger he felt was so intense I felt it from where I was standing. 𝐀𝐿 crouched over the bodies of his comrades and bared her huge teeth, challenging the huge wolf to do something about his injured friends being trampled on by her, and roared again, signaling she was still extremely angry that they were here in the first place. With her now here, I slowly moved my way back to Caleb and nuzzled him lightly. I watched as physically Caleb started to calm down a bit, and suddenly he stopped trembling. I looked back over at the huge wolf, and instead of backing down from the fight or fleeing, the anger he had on his face faded into a casually calm one. "Why is he fine? Shouldn't he be attacking us?" my wolf asked, just as confused as me. Then that's when I heard a loud plop. 𝐀𝐿 fell over with a huge tranquilizer dart shot into her arm, causing her to pass out on top of the boy she was protecting us from, followed by Caleb falling over too, because of the same type of dart. I looked around past the huge wolf into the forest for any clues to where these darts suddenly came from, only to be shot by one in my arm myself. It hurt, and it made me overcome with the will to sleep, but I was stronger than they thought I was. I ran up towards the larger wolf, and before I had the chance to bite off his face, a second dart hit me in my chest, causing me to lose feeling in my arms and legs. I crashed down into the dirt floor underneath me, only inches away from the other wolf's body, but my body was too weak to stand back up. I tried growling, but even then nothing came out of my mouth. I fought with my eyelids to stay open as I slowly saw a blurred figure emerge from the bushes in the forest with a huge gun-like thing in its arms. No, I can't lose you again. Stay with me, baby. Stay with us, I heard Seth say in the mind link as their panicked emotions invaded my body unannounced. Keep those eyes open, beautiful. You need to watch us kick their asses, 𝐿𝐿 chimed in, but it was too late. Their words reached me, but my head was starting to spin. My eyes grew heavier by the second, and my body felt like it didn't even belong to me anymore. I told 𝐿𝐿 he was a strong one. It might keep him out for a while, but third time's a charm, I heard a southern male and deep voice say before I felt another dart hit my body. And he was right. Third time was a charm because I was out instantly. Everything suddenly stopped. There was no noise. I didn't feel anyone's feelings, including my own, and I couldn't see anything but darkness. Chapter 40. Seth's POV. Again, I wasn't there to protect him again. Why do we even call ourselves his mate, my wolf asked me, but I was too in shock to answer. We were all in the spot that 𝐀𝐿, Caleb, and Kyle were last. Their scents were super strong here, then somehow just stopped, leaving us no trail to go on. There was also a note left for us that didn't clearly explain why each of them were taken away. You've got to be kidding me. They clearly took them into the forest. Let's just go charge in there and take them back, 𝐿𝐿 shouted angrily as I stared down at the small pools of blood scattered around the dirt. Kyle fought long and hard for me to come assist him, and again, I wasn't strong enough to protect him from danger. Because we have to use our heads. Charging in there without a plan will just get us hurt or killed. Do you think I'm fine knowing that he's been captured? James yelled back, but I just tuned out their shouting. I didn't seem to be the only one at a loss for words either. Surprisingly, Cornelius was quiet this entire time. He was frowning and his fists were balled so tight I was shocked that he wasn't bleeding. But I understood exactly how he felt. The feeling you get when you know no matter how hard you tried, you still weren't good enough. After he was hurt by Cornelius, I couldn't sleep for days, weeks even. I finally got him back in my hands and now he's gone. Poof, just like that. And what was the last words I said to him? I can't even remember. After the fight I had with my brothers, we never got a chance to be alone and actually talk about it. I never got a chance to apologize or even tell him that I loved him one last time. This was the worst. I felt guilt, sorrow, anger. I felt everything yet nothing at the same time. Why couldn't I have been stronger? Why couldn't I have gotten to him just a minute quicker? Stop, 𝐿𝐲 said, gaining the attention of all of us, including me. Did she just say stop? Liam asked slowly, and I nodded my head in unison with James. She doesn't want you both to fight, Cornelius said calmly despite the huge frown on his face, finally speaking up. 𝐿𝐲 looked just as distraught as we did. Meti was close to her, and Cornelius must have felt double the pain since he lost not only Meti as his pride member but Caleb as mate. Not fight? Then what are we supposed to do, huh? Hold hands while our mates are out there scared and probably getting hurt, Liam said, and James grinded his teeth together in annoyance but didn't say a single word. Stop, 𝐿𝐲 said again angrily, and this time Liam listened and just shut his mouth. It's getting dark. We should all head in. We will discuss what to do tomorrow morning. Everyone's sleeping under one roof tonight. No one go anywhere alone for the time being, Cornelius said before walking away from all of us. What a prick. No one go anywhere alone. Kyle is our beta, and he wasn't alone yet still got captured. If it was that easy, we wouldn't be in this situation, Liam said angrily through our brotherly mind link. He was right. Even though Kyle was strong, he still lost. Which only made me imagine how that fight ended. The pools of blood that were scattered around didn't smell like Kyle's, so someone must have been injured greatly and clearly lost a lot of blood. Then how did Kyle and Meti lose? My wolf asked, voicing my inner thoughts. I didn't answer him or even reply back to Liam. Instead, I just headed towards Cornelius's cabin with my head down and my fists clenched. My body felt cold and my heart. No, my soul ached. I felt like I'd been stabbed in my heart repeatedly, and I craved his touch. I craved his smell. I craved his everything. I loved him, and I'd give anything to trade places with him. Why did everything keep happening to him and not me? Why couldn't we finally be happy? Was there something wrong with me? I should be able to give my mate everything, and it seems like the only thing I've caused him is pain. We'll get him back, so stay strong. He wouldn't want you feeling like this, James whispered to me before placing a hand on my shoulder. I felt tears start to silently slide down my face, and I just watched them fall in between my feet after I stopped walking. Why does love hurt so much? How could I lose the one reason for my existence? I loved him and would give him the universe if he asked for it. Don't stop fighting, baby. I'll come get you soon. I tried mind-linking Kyle, but all I got was silence. I didn't expect an answer, though. All I knew is that my actions would speak louder than my words, and the love I had for Kyle would help me bring him back to us. Liam's POV. How uncool was I? I told him first, before anyone else, that I was going to be right by his side to help him, and when I arrived, he was gone. How did I fuck up this bad? Oh fuck, how stupid could I be? We'll get him back, so stay strong. He wouldn't want you feeling like this, James whispered to Seth, then Seth just started bawling. If I were there for Kyle quicker, none of this would be happening to us right now. I was the sole reason why my brothers were sad and that my mate was missing. They always want to put all the blame on themselves, but this time it was all me. I literally told him I was going to be there and didn't make it in time. He probably wouldn't want me to beat myself up either, but I can't help it. I should have been there. I fought with stronger wolves during training than I just did. I should have beat them way quicker than I did, and I wasn't cautious enough. I should have never left Kyle out of my sight the moment we arrived here. That was my first mistake. Next, I should have, no matter what, been able to track down his scent, but I couldn't. Out of all of us brothers, I had the best nose, yet I couldn't sniff out our own mate. Once we were at Cornelius's house, we stayed in the bottom area while Cornelius and his pride, well, what's left of it, were on the second floor area. I didn't know what plan he had in mind, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep tonight knowing that Kyle and Caleb and even Meti might be in danger and need me. I growled lowly to myself as I thought of how they could be hurting my baby. James's POV. The walk back to Cornelius's house was silent. No one spoke or made any unnecessary noise. We were all clearly upset at the situation and ourselves. 𝐿𝐲 and the other girls were usually bubbly and filled with laughter, but now that one of their pride members, Meti, was gone, they've just been dead quiet. And who could blame them? Without Kyle here, my brothers and I were the same way. The same as Cornelius is without Caleb or his pride. After we reached his house and after I spoke with Seth, I decided to lay down on Cornelius's recliner. We were all smart enough to know that separating right now might decrease our numbers, and we need to formulate a plan in the morning to go rescue our mates. But even though I knew we'd be reunited soon, and even though I had faith in Kyle's strength and ability as our beta, deep down my heart ached all over again. Once I arrived at the scene of his kidnapping, the smell of his blood sent shivers down my spine. He was hurt and away from us. It felt like a part of my soul was ripped out of my body. But no matter how angry I was at myself for not making it to him in time, I knew that I had to be calm and collected to be able to think clearly and logically. I had to think, what would Kyle do? Hell, what couldn't he do? He was our beta, for crying out loud. He was sexy, funny, charming, and strong. If anyone could survive a kidnapping from other wolves, it would be him. But it wasn't like I was worrying for nothing. Caleb and Mehdi were taken too. He wouldn't be able to fight fully while worried about them, which was another one of his attractive traits, worrying about others. But now wasn't the time to fantasize about Kyle. It was time to learn from my part mistakes so that they didn't happen again. Since I was too slow to be by his side, I need to practice and improve my stamina. Since I wasn't strong enough to get by his side quicker, I need to bench train more and practice fighting techniques. And since my love for him wasn't enough, I need to show him that I love him every day and every second we're near each other. This situation surprisingly taught me that just because we're mates doesn't mean there isn't going to be a time where he's not by my side. I needed to rescue him the first thing in the morning. I needed my mate right by my side when I kicked all their asses. Chapter 41. Kyle's POV. My body ached everywhere and my head felt like it was going to explode. The last thing I remembered was getting taken out by a dart, then somehow I was in the middle of a cell. Like I said, he's not going to listen to us. He's going to bite you, I heard a girl say, and when I looked up from the floor, a man entered the cell in front of her. It was cold and wet in here. It also really sucked and stunk, but I wasn't worried about the cell. I was more worried about where they took Mehdi and Caleb since I was in here alone. And what were my mates doing right now? I couldn't reach them from here, and I just hoped that they weren't blaming this on themselves. It wasn't anyone's fault but these bastards in the first place. He's not going to bite me. You're overreacting, the guy said before rolling his eyes and stepping closer to me. My ankles were cuffed together and my wrists were chained together from the ceiling, leaving me no room to move freely, and the chains dug into my wrist whenever I tried to escape them. Right, gorgeous? 'Cause if you did, I'd go have some fun with your friends. Instead, the guy threatened me and I glared at him. They were also kind enough to gag me, which is probably why the girl was scared that I'd bite the shit out of this dude if he took it off, which I would love to do, but not if it was going to risk him harassing or hurting Mehdi and Caleb. Even though Mehdi wasn't a part of my pack, I still felt close to Cornelius's pride. Plus, she came to my rescue like the badass she is, so I can't not stick up for her. Don't you dare touch them, I spat at him angrily once he took the gag off of me. My jaw was so sore from having that thing in my mouth, and the pain that I was feeling all over my body didn't seem to be doing away anytime soon. I won't, as long as you behave. Now we're going to take you to the boss. Best behavior, or you're going to end up right back here, he said, as he yanked the chain from the ceiling, causing it to come down. I didn't say anything else, and he used the chain to tug me behind him, with the girl walking behind me nervously. What the fuck does their boss want with us, my wolf asked, and I was wondering the same thing. These were the wolves that were clearly trying to pick a fight with Cornelius, and by taking Mehdi and Caleb, they must want to die by the hands of his angry beast. And by taking you, they must want our 3 angry sexy mates to storm in here, my wolf said, and I couldn't agree more. Just picturing the 3 of them in here causing chaos made me crack a small smile, but it instantly left my face the second I was out of my cell and onto the floor of some huge living room. Caleb and Mehdi were already here, sitting on the floor, chained up just like me, and they sat me right in the middle of them. From the looks of things, Caleb was still shaken up, but once I was beside him, he stopped being so stiff, while Mehdi looked the angriest I've ever seen her. She sat still, but you could just feel the anger radiate off of her as she glared at a guy sitting in the middle of a couch across from us. Now that you're all here, I'll begin answering some of the questions you may have. You all might be thinking, what am I doing here, and who are these people? The guy spoke with an accent similar to Cornelius's, and my eyes locked on him. Everyone in this room, including the guy and girl that brought me out of my cell, were no older than we were, maybe even younger. I'm the leader of this small pack, Julian. We come from the East and are made up of what everyone else would classify rogues. But we're all completely sane. We all come from different places, and I personally have gathered everyone you see in this pack. From people that were exiled for sexual orientation to people that were running away from toxic environments within their own families. I've taken them all in and taught them the true meaning of love and trained them to become one of the strongest up-and-coming packs there, as Julian explained, but the more he spoke, the more confused I got. While it's true that most packs are accepting of their members, not all of them do, but I was still confused as to where this was going. If he saved people from becoming insane rogues by making them join his makeshift pack, why did he take us so forcefully? What was his true goal? The reason we were here was because we planned on making this our territory. But can you believe it was occupied by lions already? So we planned on coming together as a pack and driving them out, but then one day they disappeared. Instead of moving in when they were gone, we stalked the place and thought it would be easier to just get rid of them once they returned, so that we wouldn't be in fear of them returning if we took it while they were gone, he continued, and I glanced around the other people in the room. They all appeared to be healthy, so it seemed Julian took really good care of them as a leader, but where did he come from if these were all rescues? Then suddenly they returned a while later with a few wolves with them. So I was wondering if they asked for help to deal with us, until I thought that we must have been deemed a pretty good threat if the lions needed help fighting us. He rambled and I sighed. What was this guy getting at? What the hell was the reason why I was separated from my mates? Anyways, I wanted to save you all like I saved these guys here. It's clear to me that the male lion must have brainwashed you all or something. If he's threatening you with kicking you out of his territory, you all can just live here. He offered, and I scoffed. He's not threatening us, and he isn't that bad of a guy, I told him honestly, and Caleb and Mehdi nodded in unison. You poor things. They can't even realize they're being tricked and manipulated by that beast, Julian sighed before shaking his head. Can't you all see that our alpha is willing to take you all in? It's an honor to even be asked to join us here. We have plenty of food and resources here, so you won't need to keep hunting every day like he forces you to. The guy spoke up, causing me to roll my eyes. What's the real reason we were brought here, Julian? I asked him, and the room grew silent. Our alpha was rejected from his past mate, and he thinks you three showed enough courage to be nominated as his new mate. An alpha needs a good mate by his side to be fully functional and strong. The girl mumbled from beside the couch, and I laughed. I busted out laughing so hard I all but fell over. You're all insane. First of all, we're clearly all taken. Did you not see the amount of marks I have on my body from my three wonderfully strong mates? And even though Mehdi and Caleb don't have marks, they're extremely precious to Cornelius. That super scary lion that'll kill you all once he finds out we're here, I told them truthfully, and Julian just sighed in return. Well, that just means we'd have to kill them or force the marks off of you. And since they haven't bonded with that monster, we'd just have to force marks upon them, Julian mumbled to himself, but it was loud enough to make my blood run cold. Kill what? Kill who? My mates? He was joking. I wouldn't ever let him even get the chance to be close enough to breathe the same air as them, let alone kill them. They're too brainwashed to reason with right now. Put them all in the same cell and bring them some fresh clothes and food, Julian said, and everyone in the room began to move. I won't let you touch them, I yelled at him, but I was yanked out of the room and dragged back to the cell before I could even try to fight out of my restraints. It's okay. The boss isn't that cruel, you'll see the truth soon enough. You're being tricked, the girl told me as tears flew down my face in anger. I spit at her, and the guy punched me so hard in the stomach it knocked the wind out of me. I saw Mehdi struggling as well, making her also get hit similar to me while Caleb suffered the same treatment. I had to think of a plan to get us out of this psychotic place. It was no different than some deranged cult. It was clear to me that Julian rescued people when they were at their weakest, so that he can mold them into his ideal perfect pack. They called him their boss and their alpha, but he was really just a rogue playing house. They were once sane, but he was insane to the point where he can get away with anything by writing it off as others being the ones brainwashed. But one thing was clear, I needed to save Mehdi, Caleb, and myself before anything goes wrong here. I wasn't going to let a single person here touch any of my marks, nor my mates. Chapter 42. Kyle's POV. Dude, come on and just eat. We aren't going to poison you, a blue-haired boy said angrily, but I refused. He's been trying to feed all three of us for the past 2 hours, but I refused to eat anything from these crazy people. The more I didn't eat, the more Meti and Caleb refused to eat as well, making the little blueberry boy extremely angry. Whatever. I can't do this anymore. You're going to cave in one day or another, and I don't want to hear shit about you being hungry. I fucking slave away over a hot stove for this shit. I'm out of here. He shouted angrily before standing up and leaving with his huge pot of soup. We were all sitting down beside each other in the floor, but even from down here I could see that he was only about 5 or so. He was cute and looked to be around Caleb's age, but they were completely different. While Caleb was usually quiet, this boy had a huge potty mouth on him. He cursed worse than I did by a long shot and had a few piercings on his ears. His hair was as blue as his eyes were, and despite being cute, he was always yelling and extremely angry. You can't just give up on them, Angel. The boss said we had to make sure they eat, or else, the girl from before said as she pulled her bright lavender hair up into a ponytail. You shouldn't have said his name, Nova. Now they're going to remember it. The guy that dragged me away to the living room a few hours ago shouted at her, causing her to flinch. Like you're any better, dumbass. And so what if they know our name's Briar? It's not like they can do much with that information anyways, Angel said before rolling his eyes and leaving with the huge pot in his little hands. Briar, the huge meathead that was extremely rough, glared at Angel as he left, then reverted his glare back towards Nova, the small girl with lavender hair. You're the reason he gets away with shit like that, Nova. If you were a better example to follow as a leader, we wouldn't be on babysitting duty right now, Briar scolded her, and she looked like she was on the verge of tears. These three were completely different than the wolves I fought against, and they were way different than the ones I encountered before in the clearing. This pack is full of different characters. Make sure to keep your guard up, my wolf told me, and I couldn't agree more. A few minutes later of them arguing, Briar punched our cell walk before leaving the same way Angel did. We all just looked at each other silently before looking towards the girl in unison. She was crying. Tiny alligator tears were rolling off her rosy cheeks and onto the floor as her makeup began to run. Her hair was starting to get messy and her shirt was already dirtied from her tear makeup mixture falling on it. There. You don't have to cry, Nova, I told her honestly, only because her wailing was starting to hurt my ears and also make me feel bad. It's just that we're supposed to be a team, and it's like I'm the only one trying, she said as she used her arm to roughly rub the tears away from her eyes. This would be a good chance to get any unaddressed questions we have out of the way. If it's her, I'm sure she'd answer them given the heat of things with the others right now. But we'd have to hurry before someone comes back. Is he your brother or something? That Briar guy, Caleb spoke up. He must have thought the same thing as me. And this was the first I've heard him speak since we got ambushed in the first place. Briar? No, he's not my brother, she said while laughing slightly before her cheeks puffed up. A lot of us here that share similar trauma are close, and even though he acts like that, he cares a lot about this place. Similar trauma. That was clearly a touchy subject, so I didn't want to pry into that since I knew boundaries, so instead I need to try to go around that and ask something else. When did Julian rescue you? I'm only skeptical about joining since I want to know how godly he is first, I lied, and she perked up in emotion almost instantly, just at the sound of his names leaving my lips. Oh, the boss rescued me about 3 years ago. I was found right after he rescued Briar, so that's probably why he's really protective of me despite how he acts. I was starving, cold, and wet near the most powerful pack in southern USA. She explained, and I shifted on the floor to get more comfortable. My wolf was apparently too weak to stay in my former pack, so they kicked me out. And by they, I mean my parents. One night they just suddenly yanked me out of my bed and threw me into hunting territory. I had no choice but to shift, and a bunch of hunters were after me, and they chased me from New Mexico all the way to deep into Texas. But the bad thing is they pushed me into the strongest southern pack's territory, and they of course didn't let me stay for long ... Not that I wanted to anyways. They have some members that are a bit ... too touchy, she said, lowly before crossing her arms around her chest. But after I left them, Julian found me. And he didn't care about all the stuff the guys there did to me. He didn't see me as dirty, he just saw me as me. And he also didn't even care about how weak I was. Instead, he said he'd help train me into becoming the strong and amazing me that I can be. She beamed, and I smiled. I was glad that he was helping these people, but at the same time distracted by the fact that he was basically using their weaknesses and shaping them into his pawns. Nova stopped talking to them. If they have no interest in joining us, we're wasting our time, Angel shouted as he re-entered the cell. No, her story actually touched us to the point where we were starting to consider joining Angel, I told him seriously, and all he did was stare at me with a cocked eyebrow. Really? Is that so? He asked skeptically, and I nodded my head in response. It's true. Her story touched me because I'm a runt and an omega myself, so I know how it feels to have a weaker wolf than everyone around you. I've always wanted to get stronger to protect the people I care about, like Kyle, but I'm always left shaking and trembling weakly. Caleb spoke up, and I looked over at him. He was already strong. Strength comes in different forms, and in this situation he was even stronger than I was. He just never sees it himself. Great. Then I'll take you to the boss right now, big guy. After you, I'm going to bring in the runt, then the girl. He'll interview you each to make sure you're not lying, and it'll also be an interview to see which one of you is fit to stand by his side as his mate, Angel said before he walked over to me smirking. I had to play along now, or it'll ruin our chances of getting out of here without injuries. There seemed to be way more of them than I expected if he was collecting them throughout several years, and on top of that, we had no idea where he got those darts that got us here in the first place.